The night was quieter than usual, as if the city itself was holding its breath. Vera sat alone in her study, the dim golden glow of the chandelier casting long shadows across the walls. The room was silent, but her mind wasn't. Thoughts of Elena haunted her like a melody she couldn't forget. It hadn't always been like this. Vera, the Mafia Boss feared by many, had always kept her heart locked away behind steel and silence. But Elena had changed that. A nurse, soft-spoken yet fierce in her values, Elena had seen something in Vera that no one else ever bothered to look for. In return, Vera had found herself lowering her guard, allowing tenderness to bleed through the cracks she had spent years sealing shut. Their story had unfolded in stolen glances, intense silences after gunfire, in the way Elena had once stitched up a wound on Vera's side and whispered, "You're not made of stone." It was in that moment Vera knew. This wasn't just an infatuation. It was something far more dangerous. But the road had not been kind. Trust came slow, and misunderstandings faster. Vera's world was drenched in violence and shadows, and Elena had every right to fear it. There had been moments when Vera thought she could pull Elena into her life without letting her drown in it. That illusion shattered during their last meeting. "I can't be close to someone who lives like this," Elena had said, eyes damp but voice firm. "I need to breathe without looking over my shoulder." Vera hadn't argued. She had watched Elena walk away, jaw clenched and heart burning, too proud to beg and too broken to speak. But the silence that followed was unbearable. She had built empires, silenced enemies, and turned betrayals into ashes. Yet nothing had ever hurt like Elena's absence. Now, Vera sat with a glass of untouched whiskey in one hand and Elena's scarf in the other. The softness of the fabric between her fingers reminded her of the warmth she had once felt. Brief, but real. She was done pretending that she could let go. She didn't want to own Elena. She wanted to be worthy of her. Vera rose from the chair, slowly, like someone preparing for a mission far more important than any she had commanded. This wasn't about dominance or strategy. It was about heart. About love. And for the first time, the Mafia Boss wasn't going to fight for power. She was going to fight for Elena. Vera had always believed love was a weakness. In her world, hesitation could get you killed, and softness was something to be buried, not displayed. But now, sitting by the large window of her penthouse, watching the city's cold lights flicker, below, she realized, nothing had ever made her feel stronger than the thought of being with Elena. She didn't send her men this time. No black SUVs parked across the street from Elena's apartment. No shadowy figures watching from alleyways. That wasn't love. That was fear. And Vera didn't want Elena to fear her. Not anymore. Instead, she sent protection quietly. 2 of her most loyal guards were instructed to watch over Elena from a respectful distance. No contact, no intimidation, only silent guardianship. Elena didn't know, and that was the point. Vera wanted her safe, not indebted. Still, the ache in her chest grew heavier with each passing day of silence. Vera wasn't used to waiting. She was used to taking. But Elena had taught her that some things couldn't be taken. They had to be earned. One evening, Vera sat at her desk, staring at a blank sheet of paper. For the first time in years, her hands trembled. Not from fear, but from something deeper, naked sincerity. She picked up the fountain pen, its golden edge catching the lamplight, and began to write. "Elena, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even expect a reply. But I need you to know that when you walked away, you didn't leave an empire behind. You left me, Vera, a woman who never knew what it meant to want someone not for power or pride, but for peace. You made me feel seen, and I'm trying, not to win you, but to become someone you wouldn't have to fear." She folded the letter carefully, sealed it in an envelope, and addressed it in her own handwriting. No signature ring, no insignia. Just her words. Raw, personal, and quiet. The letter was delivered through a private courier, not one of her men, but a neutral service. Elena received it 2 days later, tucked between hospital reports and pharmacy slips. She almost didn't recognize the handwriting, but when she did, her fingers paused and her breath caught in her throat. She read it once, then again. There were no threats, no dramatic declarations, just honesty. It was disarming, but Elena didn't respond. Vera waited. Day after day, she held on to hope like it was the last thread tying her to something good. She didn't go back to her usual ways. She spent her nights looking at the stars through glass, instead of strategizing bloodshed. Her men noticed the change. Whispers spread. The boss had softened. Some were confused. A few were angry, but Vera didn't care. One night, as she sat alone in her private garden on the rooftop, an oasis few knew existed, she remembered something from long ago. A girl, no older than 12, sitting by her dying mother's bed. The woman had been frail, but strong in spirit. She had brushed Vera's hair and whispered, "Don't let this world turn you into stone, my darling. Your heart is your greatest weapon, even if they say it's your weakness." Back then, Vera had buried those words. Now she heard them like a whisper through time. Maybe this mission wasn't just about Elena. Maybe it was about healing something broken inside her long before the nurse ever walked into her life. Still, the silence hurt. Vera pressed the scarf Elena once left behind to her face, inhaling the faded scent of lavender and clean soap. She wasn't giving up. Not yet, because even without a reply, that letter had been her first honest step. And sometimes, the heart needed time to trust again. Elena sat curled up on her couch, a cup of tea slowly cooling in her hands. The dim light of the lamp beside her cast soft shadows on the walls, and though the world outside her apartment carried on, her own heart felt frozen in place. Vera's letter lay on the coffee table, uncreased, unmarked, as if she hadn't already read it a dozen times. Every line played like an echo in her mind, laced with sincerity so unlike the woman Elena had run from. And that, perhaps, was the most dangerous part. She tried to move on. She really did. Her days at the hospital were packed, and the chaos of emergency calls should have been enough to distract her. But between the beeping monitors and sterile corridors, her thoughts drifted back to the woman in black. Always watching from behind impenetrable eyes, always gentle in private, terrifying in public. It hadn't always been like this. The night everything had shifted still clung to her memory like perfume on silk. They had been ambushed outside a clinic, rival gang members clearly targeting Vera. Elena had screamed when the first gunshot rang out, instinctively ducking. But then Vera had shielded her, arms around her, body a living barrier between her and death. The aftermath was brutal. Blood on concrete, sirens in the distance. But what Elena remembered most was Vera's voice trembling against her ear. You hurt? Not a command, not a threat, just worry, pure and human. And then, there was the night they had almost kissed, rain tapping at the windows, the storm outside nothing compared to the one that buzzed silently in the space between them. Vera had poured her a glass of wine, eyes softer than usual. They sat close, too close. Elena had leaned in without realizing it. Vera's hand had brushed her cheek, hesitant, reverent. But just before their lips met, Elena had pulled away. Not because she didn't want it, because she did. That's what scared her most. She sighed and reached for her phone, scrolling, to her best friend Nora's contact. If anyone could help her untangle this mess of emotion, it was her. The video call connected in seconds. "Elena?" You look like you haven't slept." "I haven't," she admitted, pulling her knees to her chest. "I got a letter from Vera." Nora blinked. "Wait, Vera? The Mafia boss you ghosted?" "I didn't ghost her. I walked away. Same thing when it comes to women like that." Nora leaned closer to the camera. "Okay, spill." Elena hesitated, then read the letter aloud. Her voice cracked midway through, but she kept going. When she finished, silence stretched between them. "Shit," Nora finally said. "That doesn't sound like someone playing a game." "I know," Elena whispered, "and that's the problem. Do you still care about her?" Elena didn't answer immediately. Her eyes drifted to the letter again. "I care enough that it hurts." Nora nodded slowly. "Then maybe you should see her, on your terms, public, safe. Let her show you who she really is now. You owe yourself that much." After the call ended, Elena sat in stillness. Her heart and mind were at war, logic reminding her that people like Vera couldn't just change, but emotion whispering that maybe, just maybe, this woman already had. By morning, her decision was made. She took out a small notepad from her drawer, the kind she used for scribbling shift notes, and wrote a message of her own. "Meet me at the Riverside Cafe. Tomorrow at 6. Come alone. No explanation. No invitation to anything more. Just a chance." She folded the paper and slipped it into an envelope, then handed it to the same courier service that had delivered Vera's letter. There was a strange comfort in that symmetry. As she watched this courier disappear into the crowd below her apartment building, Elena felt the storm inside her settle just slightly. She wasn't running back into danger. She wasn't surrendering her heart. She was giving truth a place to speak. And if Vera truly meant every word, then tomorrow would show her. The Riverside Cafe was almost empty that evening, the golden hour casting warm light over the water. A gentle breeze stirred the umbrellas overhead, and the quiet hum of clinking cups and soft music gave the place an oddly intimate feel. It was peaceful, something neither of them had felt in a long time. Elena arrived first. She chose a table near the edge of the patio, where the river shimmered beneath the setting sun. Her heart thudded against her ribs. Her fingers curled tightly around the cup of herbal tea she hadn't touched. She kept glancing toward the entrance, trying to prepare herself for anything, for everything. Then, she saw her Vera. No dark coat, no signature heels, no intimidating presence that demanded obedience the moment she entered a room. Just a simple black turtleneck, soft gray slacks, and a face that looked more human than Elena had ever seen it. Her eyes searched, landed on Elena, and for the briefest moment, something like relief flickered in them. Vera approached slowly, not with the swagger of a mafia queen, but the hesitation of someone afraid they might be turned away. "May I sit?" she asked gently. Elena nodded. They were quiet for a moment. The tension between them wasn't sharp, more like a heavy warmth, filled with all the unsaid words they'd carried alone. "You look well," Vera said, breaking the silence. "I've been surviving," Elena replied honestly. Vera offered a small pained smile. "I deserved that." "No, you didn't," Elena said after a pause. "You deserved honesty, just like I did." Vera nodded, looking down at her folded hands. "I wasn't used to honesty before you. I'm still learning how to be this?" Elena asked, voice soft. "Not a boss, not a protector, just a woman." Her voice trembled slightly. "One who wakes up thinking about you and goes to sleep wondering if you're safe. And not because you belong to me, but because I love you." Elena's breath caught in her throat. Hearing the words didn't make her heart race with fear this time. It just made it ache. Vera continued, I didn't come here to convince you or win you. I came here to say that I don't want to own your heart. I want to earn a place in whatever that looks like." For a long moment, Elena just stared at her. There was no mask, no power play, just raw, trembling sincerity. "You can't love me like a war, Vera," Elena whispered. "You have to love me like a promise, like something sacred." "I know," Vera said, eyes locked on hers. "And I will. I've already started changing things. I've stepped back from operations that made me feel like I was losing myself. I don't want that life. Not if it costs me someone like you." A tear slipped down Elena's cheek before she could stop it. "It scares me, you know? How much I care about you. How easy it would be to fall into your arms and forget everything that makes me careful." "Then don't forget it," Vera said, reaching out slowly. "Bring it with you. Be careful. Be fierce. Be you. I'll meet you there." Their fingers brushed, tentative, delicate. Elena exhaled shakily. "I don't know if I'm ready to give you an answer." "I'm not asking for one," Vera said softly. "Not tonight." But Elena leaned forward anyway. Slowly, unsure at first, until her lips found Vera's. It was not a kiss of passion or desperation. It was gentle, questioning, healing. Vera responded just as softly, one hand resting on the table, not daring to touch more than that. When Elena pulled away, she looked into Vera's eyes that had once promised danger, now only filled with longing and hope. "This doesn't mean everything's fixed," Elena said, her voice firm but tender. "I know," Vera replied. "But it means something began, and for the first time in a long time, that was enough." The kiss still lingered on Vera's lips as she watched Elena walk away, her silhouette fading into the soft glow of the riverside lights. There were no promises spoken, no grand declarations, just that one quiet kiss, and the unspoken truth. Nestled within it, this wasn't over, but it wasn't guaranteed either. Elena didn't look back, and Vera didn't call after her. She simply stood there, letting the evening settle around her like a prayer she dared not disturb. When she returned to the mansion, the change in her was visible. The guards posted by the gate exchanged glances. Inside, her most trusted lieutenants fell into a cautious silence as she passed. The woman who returned was still Vera, the boss, but her silence no longer carried threat. It carried weight, reflection, resolve. She didn't storm into meetings. She didn't issue commands in a clipped tone. Instead, she went straight to her office and called for Marco, her oldest and most brutal enforcer. "Sit," she said calmly. He obeyed, confused by the lack of cold steel in her voice. "There will be no retaliation for the Antonov incident," she said firmly. "No blood, no warnings. We're stepping back from these games." Marco blinked. "Boss, with all due respect." "I'm not asking for your approval," she interrupted. "Only your obedience. The Antonovs won't move unless we give them a reason, and I'm done giving reasons." Her tone left no room for argument, but her eyes, they were softer, focused. She issued a list of operations to halt: illegal arms deals, blackmail rings, even a contract that was supposed to be carried out that weekend. "I want everything on pause, and if anyone questions it, send them to me directly." As Marco left the room, stunned, another man lingered in the corridor just beyond Vera's door. A younger capo, ambitious and sharp-eyed, someone who had benefited greatly from Vera's more ruthless past. He had risen through the ranks not because he was loyal, but because he was clever enough to stay quiet. And now, he sensed a shift. One that made him nervous. He slipped away from the hallway like a shadow, already weighing his options. A boss who softens is a boss who bleeds. And bleeding, in this world, invited war. Back inside, Vera poured herself a glass of water, not whiskey, and walked toward the tall bookshelf where, tucked behind leather-bound volumes, she kept something, hidden from even her most trusted men. A small framed photograph. Elena, laughing in a hospital garden, unaware Vera had captured the moment from a distance. Vera held the frame in both hands, staring into the image like it held her future. "She's worth more than this empire," she whispered. Her voice didn't shake. It didn't falter. "And I'll prove it."